Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to our Explainer Masterclass on the hidden mechanics of everyday dialogue. We speak every single day, often without ever really thinking about the invisible rules that govern our words. So today, we are opening up the conversation playbook to decode something so incredibly common, you probably used it like 5 minutes ago: the yes-no question. Have you ever seen a ghost? I'll give you a second to just think about that. Notice what just happened in your mind right there. Without us even defining the grammatical rules, your brain was immediately forced into a binary choice. You couldn't exactly answer with a location or a time or a description. The very architecture of that sentence completely hijacked your thought process and demanded a very specific type of response. So here is our playbook for today. We're covering 1. The anatomy of yes-no, 2. The auxiliary verb rule, 3. The art of responding, 4. Power in negative questions, and 5. The melody of questions. Let's kick things off with Section 1, the anatomy of yes-no. Having a finite, highly organized set of conversational plays actually gives us a bit of cognitive relief, proving that grammar isn't just total chaos. Let's look at the simplest sentences that force that binary choice we just talked about. A yes-no question is exactly what it sounds like. It's a question that needs either a yes or a no answer. Like, do you like vanilla ice cream? It seems incredibly simple on the surface, right? But underneath that simple choice is a really fascinating structural architecture that actually makes the question work.
Moving right along to Section 2, the auxiliary verb rule.
This underlying architecture is where we learn what I like to call the auxiliary verb dance. This is where words literally shuffle around the subject to build a question. When we have a statement like, you usually walk to work, there is no auxiliary or helper verb present. To turn this into a question, we can't just flip the existing words around. We definitely can't say, walk you usually to work. Instead, we've got to inject a helper verb. We bring in do to make it, do you usually walk to work? And if it's in the past tense, like you likes disco music in the 70s, well, we inject did to make it, did you like disco music in the 70s? We are mechanically inserting new pieces to signal to the listener that a binary question is coming their way.
But you absolutely have to be careful with this dance. There's a really common trap here. Where did you find the keys is correct, but where did find you the keys is absolutely incorrect. So the crucial point to remember is that only auxiliary and modal verbs go before the subject. The main verb itself, in this case find, never, ever jumps ahead of the subject. It stays firmly in its place.
Now, there is a massive pitfall to avoid, a big exception to the helper verb rule. When your main verb is be, you completely drop the auxiliary verb dance. We simply say, is she your sister? We do not inject a helper to say, does she be your sister? That just sounds incredibly unnatural to a native speaker. The verb be is powerful enough to stand entirely on its own at the front of the sentence.
But what happens when things get, really complicated and we have multiple helpers? Take this incredibly rigid word order. Should we have been writing this down? Notice exactly how we parse this out. Step 1 is the modal should. Step 2 is the subject we. Then step 3 and 4 are our auxiliaries, have and been, right before we finally hit the main verb writing in step 5. No matter how many helpers you have, only the very first modal or auxiliary moves to the front. The rest just stay lined up right behind the subject. It's honestly like a strict mathematical formula masquerading as language. All right, let's jump to Section 3, the art of responding. So now that we know how to build these questions, let's look at how we actually answer them. Because let's be real, humans rarely just serve back a robotic one-word yes or no. We have a whole arsenal of informal conversational volleys. Yeah, yep, okay, nah, nope. We rapid-fire these slang alternatives in casual everyday chats all the time. They do the exact same grammatical job as a formal yes or no, but they carry a much, much more relaxed social energy. But it goes a lot deeper than just slang. Let's set up a quick mini scene here to showcase how we use implicit answers in real-world dialogue. Imagine someone walks up and asks you, do you know Tina Gomez? Now, what's really fascinating about this response is what is completely missing from it: the actual word yes. The responder says, we've known each other for years, we went to the same school. They provide a clear, undeniable yes to the binary question without ever actually saying the word. And we do this constantly to build rapport, providing rich, contextual information rather than just a blunt confirmation. We also use extra context as a highly relatable social maneuver, particularly when we're answering no. For example, will you be going to Ryan's party? No, I'm actually going to be away on Friday night. By adding that extra context, it really softens the conversational blow. A flat no can feel super aggressive or dismissive. The added explanation just smooths out all that social friction.
Next up, Section 4, Power in Negative Questions.
If you ever want to see how language manipulates social dynamics, just watch how a single negative word changes absolutely everything. Take the question, "Isn't that Pauline's car?" We aren't asking this because we have a blank slate and need new facts. No way. We use this specific negative structure to check or confirm a suspicion we already believe to be true. I already think it's her car. I just want you to validate my observation. It completely changes the dynamic from seeking information to seeking agreement. Negative questions also carry some pretty heavy hidden social agendas, transforming basic questions into something much stronger. "Won't you stay for dinner?" is a much more forceful, persuasive invitation than simply asking, "Will you stay for dinner?" On the flip side, "Can't the manager do something about the noise?" is an aggressive complaint. It expresses frustration in a way that "Can the manager do something?" simply doesn't. Now, a quick warning for you focused learners out there regarding formality levels. If you decide not to use a contraction and you use the full word not, it drastically alters the sentence architecture. Is that not the oldest building in this street? Separating the subject and the not sounds extremely formal, maybe even a bit archaic. Contrast that with the informal, "Isn't that the oldest building on this street?" Just the placement of the negative word shifts the entire tone of the room.
And finally, Section 5, the melody of questions.
Okay, so grammar isn't just words on a page. It's the physical, vocal melody that makes our grammar literally sing. Let's look at rising intonation. When we genuinely do not know the answer to a yes-no question, our vocal pitch physically rises at the very end. Try it yourself. Are you warm enough? That upward sweep of the voice on the final word signals genuine curiosity and a total lack of prior knowledge. But watch what happens when we already suspect the answer. We use a fall-rising intonation. "Did you once live in Ireland?" See how the voice swoops down and then back up on the word Ireland? This dramatic little melody is literally hardwired into our voices to naturally signal to the listener that we are just looking for confirmation of something we already believe to be true.
We also chain those fall-rising intonations together when we fire off a rapid, related succession of conversational questions. "You're living in Bayswater? Are you renting your house? Is it expensive?" By linking that fall-rising melody across all three steps, we signal that this is an interconnected line of questioning, rather than just three isolated random thoughts. So let's combine the negative structure with the melody we just learned. Shouldn't we be leaving? Delivering this with a deliberate fall-rising tone acts as both a neat summary of our mechanics, a negative question seeking agreement rather than facts, and a rather provocative sign-off for our explainer today. Next time you open your mouth to confirm a suspicion or ask for a simple yes or no, I guarantee you'll be overthinking the auxiliary dance and the melody of your very next chat. Thanks so much for diving into the playbook with me.